A day after NIA charge-sheeted Pathankot plotter and Pakistan-based terrorist Masood Azhar, India's representative to the United Nations Syed Akbaruddin has a message for Pakistan. What you sow is what you'll reap. NewsX was the first to report India will mount a diplomatic offensive once NIA charge-sheeted Masood Azhar.
India welcomes the key message of SRSG, Mr. Yamamoto, highlighting the positive and supportive role that regional countries and neighbors of Afghanistan need to play. This was never as critical as it is today. Mr. President, every time we discuss the situation in Afghanistan, we face the dilemma depicted by the SRSG. While the international community recommits to standing by the Afghan people, the number of Afghan civilian and security forces casualties keep rising. While the Taliban sanctions regime remains split for more than 5 years, the designated terrorist group makes concerted efforts to capture and hold territory. Therefore, for numerous Afghan women, men and children, there is no respite from the plague of terrorism. Mr. President, we need to ask ourselves whether what we are working on in Afghanistan is the wrong thing to be working on, or whether we are working on it in the wrong way. Since we all agree that supporting the people of Afghanistan is not the wrong thing, then the questions we need to ask ourselves should be related to our ways of going about it. What do we mean when we say we stand with the people of Afghanistan? Are we doing it the right way? What is it that we are missing out on? Mr. President, it is apparent that our efforts at rebuilding institutions, infrastructure and networks in Afghanistan are being undermined. Schools are being destroyed, mosques bombarded, and religious gatherings targeted. It is also evident that those who perpetrate these heinous crimes have survived and thrived only with support and sanctuaries on the outside. Experience as well as academic research provides ample support for the assertion that conflicts in which foreign assistance is available to shadowy entities that fight legitimate state authorities tend to be more severe and last longer than other types of conflict. Therefore, if we are to bring sustainable peace to Afghanistan, groups and individuals that perpetrate violence against the people and the government of Afghanistan must be denied safe havens and sanctuaries in Afghanistan's neighborhood. We need to address as an imperative the support that terrorist organizations like the Taliban, Haqqani Network, Daesh, Al-Qaeda and its designated affiliates such as Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which operate entirely outside the fabric of international law, draw from their shadowy supporters outside Afghanistan. Mr. President, the outcome of the Heart of Asia ministerial meeting held earlier this month in the ancient city of Amritsar was a mark of India's and the international community's commitment to Afghanistan. A key focus during India's co-chairmanship of the Heart of Asia process has been to bring to the center stage the importance of connectivity for Afghanistan. A well-connected Afghanistan will be economically vibrant, prosperous, and politically stable. A well-connected Afghanistan will have great potential to engage the energies of its youth and attract its talents back from foreign lands. To deny such an opportunity and connectivity to Afghanistan is to deny Afghanistan all opportunities of prosperity and peace that this entails. The connectivity that terror networks have established needs to be replaced by that of roads, trade networks, and ideas for peace and prosperity. We need to remind ourselves of what the great son of Balkh, the poet Rumi, had once said: "Every leaf that grows will tell you."
Colonel Arsan Singh now on the phone line with us. Sir, how do you see this statement which has been made at the United Nations by a representative to the UN, especially coming off the back of the NIA charge sheet in the Pathankot terror attack case as well? How much will we go and move forward after that charge sheet in terms of launching a diplomatic offensive against Pakistan, sir?
No, more than that, the concern expressed by India through Mr. Akbaruddin, it is so appropriate. Now remember, We have sunk in so much of goodwill and so much of money in Afghanistan, more than $2 billion. And those $2 billion, I mean, it cannot have a positive impact on the country unless there is tranquility. And who is destroying that tranquility but for Pakistan? Now, Pakistan, in pursuit of a strategic depth, is actually, looking for jihadi depth. You want to install your own regime there in Taliban. You are providing safe havens there. I mean, even if, say, if you promote some, your own protege Taliban there, what in turn you are doing? You are giving Philip to the same, jihadi dynamics that has destroyed Afghanistan over and over again in the last 2 decades. And remember, what happens in Afghanistan has its reverberations in Kashmir and in the rest of the part of South Asia.
Right.
So I really commend this speech by Mr. Akbaruddin.
Right. So stay on the phone line with us because my colleague Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan also on the phone line. Geeta, how is this being seen? How would you put this into perspective in terms of the larger diplomatic offensive against Pakistan by India?
Well, this is a very crucial and critical time for India. It's the 31st of this month, Paulami, that the technical hold on Masood Azhar will lapse. And if it lapses without China explaining or withdrawing the technical hold, then it will become a permanent hold against any sort of designation of terrorist for Masood Azhar, which should be a huge blow to India. So while India has time of these 2 weeks, India is going to up the ante by putting out the fact that Jaish-e-Mohammed is a proscribed and a designated organization. Akbaruddin in his statement has said and mentioned, like all the other terror networks where he spoke about the Taliban, the Haqqani network, Daesh, which is the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, also spoke about its designated affiliates such as Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. India's efforts are on to ensure that Masood Azhar is designated by the end of this year, and if not, then for India, it is going to be an uphill task to get Masood Azhar again.
Absolutely. And the NIA, in fact, charge-sheeted Masood Azhar yesterday itself. Let's listen into spokesperson IG Alok Mittal.
Earlier this month in the
We have filed a detailed charge sheet in the Special NIA Court Mohali against 4 accused persons who are all Pakistani nationals, including the chief of Jaish-e-Mohammed, Maulana Masood Azhar. After we have collected very strong evidence against them in the form of digital evidence, technical evidence, oral and documentary evidence. The planning was done in Pakistan. They were provided training, they were provided weapons, they were provided other logistical support, and then they were constantly directed and handled by the handlers to carry out attacks at a air base in India. That is sufficient evidence to prove that the whole thing was done in Pakistan.
Colonel Arsen Singh still on the phone line with us. The NIA did charge sheet Masood Azhar and 3 other accused in the Pathankot Air Force Base Station attack, sir, from earlier this year. But the fact is, we know what their JIT did when they came over here. In terms of reciprocity, NIA was to go to Pakistan. That did not happen. So how much of cooperation can we expect in terms of trying to take this case to its logical conclusion and bringing the perpetrators to book?
No, as far as cooperation with cooperation from Pakistan, you can forget it. They have moved too much down the jihadi line, to even think of this kind of a cooperation. They are convinced of this, the jihadi spearheaded proxy war. But look, as long as we live in this civilized world, as long there are world bodies, as long as there are, diplomatic relations between 2 countries, every action that we take, every move diplomatic move that we make, adds to India's case as far as the world community is concerned. It is not that the Americans don't know that what is happening in this. After all, they are also there in Afghanistan. The NATO forces are there. So all of these, the countries, Western countries, they know. I mean, what are the dynamics, jihadi dynamics in the subcontinent? It is only that, we, by acting like a civilized country, we make our cases stronger. And you would appreciate that we have done very well as far as, diplomacy is concerned vis-a-vis Pakistan.
But what about China's attempts, sir, to block our attempts vis-a-vis Masood Azhar?
Now, what do you do with a country like China, which is comfortable with, rogue states like North Korea and Pakistan? Well, that's the geopolitical reality, and we have to factor it when we exercise our diplomacy. What can you do about it? It's a reality, and you have to face that reality. We cannot alter the behavior of the Chinese.
Right.
So under the circumstances, see, all countries in this world are, they exist in a particular geopolitical, circumstance or a scenario, and every country has his own diplomatic maneuver space, and so have we.
Right. In fact, I'll take that question with Geeta as well. Geeta, in terms of that diplomatic maneuvering space, if China does block our attempts again, what are the options before India?
Well, if there is a fresh attack or if there is fresh evidence against Masood Azhar, then India can apply again. But the fact that China, with the time that it has taken, placed a technical hold, and despite all the evidence provided, continues to hold the designating of Masood Azhar, saying there is lack of evidence against Masood Azhar, goes to show that any effort at the United Nations will bear no fruit till China is on board, and will not make sense for India to go ahead without having China on board. So there will be a lot of bilateral negotiation that will happen, and that continues between India and China. Having said that, India is not going to stop its efforts, Pauline, for one country not supporting India.
Right.
The entire international community has backed India, and if India continues doing that, China will have to then start looking at how they are going to fight against terrorism and show political intent if they continue to support Pakistan on issues such as terrorism and those who openly propagate and are involved in terror acts.
Right. Colonel Arsen Singh, diplomatically is how we can possibly go ahead with this. This is our only option if nations like China continue to block our attempts. In terms of those diplomatic efforts, do you think we're doing enough in terms of trying to corner Pakistan on the world stage?
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, our performance on the diplomatic front, I would say, has been brilliant. So to say, over what I have seen in last a year and a half or so. But as far as China is concerned, I mean, remember one that we have, we gave up all leverages one by one, against that country. So that is one mistake we have done in the past. You would have seen that the president, Mr. Trump, who is yet to take office as the president, he is trying to create his own leverages against China, and there are many, and so should we.
Right.
Like for example, I mean, a simple case I would tell you that if we have been persisting with one China policy and the Chinese have been acting against our interests, I mean, Sushma Swaraj was absolutely right. We should who reminded China that why don't you follow one India policy?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
these leverages have to be, created and then they have to be used.
Absolutely. So the diplomatic offensive has to be kept up by India. Colonel Arsen Singh, Geeta Mohan, thank you so much for your inputs on that story.